everybody. This is Margie Meacham, and this is another edition of the Learning to Go podcast, which happens to be one of the top 10 podcasts in the whole world for learning and development professionals, thanks to listeners like you and fantastic guests like the people I have today. Today is a first for our podcast. We're going to actually have two people at the same time because they're with the same terrific company. So you're going to be hearing from Bobby Kosh, a consultant, and Allison Torpey, who is the Director of People Strategies. They're both with the Propeller Group, which is a very exciting company that you guys are going to hear more about, particularly in terms of what they're doing to attract, recruit, retrain, and develop their talent, which I know is of interest to all of us. So I want to welcome both of you, and I'm going to ask you guys to tell us a little more about your company and what you each do there.
Hi, this is Bobby Kosh, and thank you very much for having us. As Margie mentioned, I'm a consultant here with Propeller. We're a Pacific Northwest-based firm, a consulting firm that works with a series of large Fortune 500 companies in the area and helping them do their work better. Whether that means that they have an issue that they're struggling with and we kind of come in and help, or if they just need someone to kind of come in and just help them do something that they're already succeeding at and just do that better. And as a consultant, I wear many hats, anywhere from just being a project manager to a trainer to a people person to helping them strategize what's next for their firm and what's best for them.
Yeah, and I'm Allison Torpey, and I've got an internal leadership role here at the firm. So I'm the Director of People Strategy for Propeller. I was a consultant for 3 years, like Bobby, before moving into this role recently. So like him, I've been change manager, project manager, business analyst at a number of different companies in town here. We do all local-based work. So Bobby and I are both located in Portland, Oregon. Propeller has another office in San Francisco, California that we're growing really quickly now. We've got about 20 people there. So super exciting times here at Propeller.
Well, and I imagine part of why you're growing, besides the fact that obviously your customers are really happy, you guys were recently named one of the best places to work for in Portland. So congratulations on that. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what makes you such a great place to work.
Yeah, so I think, thank you for that. We're really proud. It's a pretty big honor for our company to be recognized. So it's super exciting. So Jeff Foley and Amy Whedon are the two founders of Propeller. They both come from large consulting firms. They both also worked at a small boutique consulting firm. That's where they met. And they left that firm to start Propeller together with the theory that they could do it different and also better. And their main kind of differentiator is that at the core of everything that we do, we commit to our people. And whether that's our internal employee people or our client people or recruits or community or whatever, it's anyone that we kind of interact with as a community of consultants. We abide by this commitment to people, and it's really embedded in everything that we do in our ethos as a firm. And I think that that's what's made us so successful and such a great place to work.
Bobby, do you have anything you want to share on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it all starts from the top with our firm. When I first joined Propeller, they were about a year old, and this is about 3 years ago, so it's not that old of a company. But Jeff and Amy came from, as Allison mentioned, another consulting firm, and they just saw the opportunity to do things better and be more people-focused and get a culture where each one of us felt like not only just an employee, but almost as an owner or part of the family, so to speak. And in fact, owners, we just launched an employee stock option plan. So they were kind of putting their money literally where their mouth was by doing that. And we have on our leadership team a lot of really great people that really value the people that work under them, value their input. And then what Allison does with as a director of people strategy is that she is in charge of making sure we're bringing in people that espouse that culture and not only are the best and the brightest in their field from the industry, but also are not arrogant, but humble, but confident, because that's typically a stereotype of consultants, is that we get these people that are very arrogant coming into companies and telling you what you should be doing, but we demonstrate warmth as well as competence, and that's how we establish trust with our clients. So she does a really great job of getting people to come in and that have those skills, and that's what makes it a great company to work. I value and love everyone I work with here at this firm, and I can't say that about any of the companies I worked at before.
Okay, and I can definitely attest to it, having spent a couple of days with you folks recently. It really very welcoming environment. In fact, I probably had about 5 people offer me a cup of coffee within the first 5 minutes of walking in the door, which was great because I love coffee and you guys make terrific coffee. So I think that's all true. So Allison, let's talk a little more about that. Can you tell me, first of all, the Director of People Strategy, that might be a title that some people haven't heard of before. Can you kind of give us a thumbnail sketch of what your responsibilities are?
Sure, yeah. So I like to think of my role as kind of threefold. And it all goes down to the people. So the first is finding amazing people. So Bobby talked about bringing in, smart, competent folks, but also warm folks that follow our culture manifesto that I remember sharing with you when you were in town. So it's really important that we have both the smart and the emotionally intelligent folks that join our firm. So that would be the first piece, is finding amazing people. The second component I think of as keeping amazing people. So I'm responsible for kind of helping with staffing and helping folks prepare their resumes and kind of like touching base with the individual consultants throughout their life cycle here. And then the third is making people more amazing. So I actually partner with Bobby on the training program, things like that. I'm about to launch into year-end reviews and all of that. I just launched our employee survey earlier this morning. So all of that kind of like, how do we make the firm and the individuals here better over time? And then I partner. So I do those three things: find, keep, and make more amazing our people. And then I partner with the rest of the leadership team, where they're more responsible for selling individual projects for our consultants to work on. And then I kind of partner. I think of it as my job to have the right person teed up anytime any role comes our direction. Would be my kind of perfect world of my role.
Oh, it sounds like it's a lot of fun.
Love it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit more then about the making them more amazing, because you guys did something that I thought was very cool, and also not unique, but certainly pretty creative. And that is, you brought in an expert in neuroscience, me, to talk to your consultants about the lizard brain and what's going on inside the heads of the customer while you're going through the consulting process. So I was just kind of curious, what made you take that direction, made you decide that, hey, I think we need to learn a little bit more about the brain? How did that, I wish I had been a fly on the wall when that discussion came up.
Yeah, that's the decision to bring you in to talk about the neuroscience aspect of dealing with clients and just in decision making itself. To me, it's more of a just general consulting thing. This is kind of, most of our work involves interacting with people day in, day out. And most of our lives involve interacting with people day in, day out, whether it be our coworkers or family, what have you. So you need to be able to read emotions. You need to be able to understand how that person thinks, how they interpret information that comes in, how they make decisions based off of that, whether it's with your spouse, whether it's with your friends, whether it's with your coworkers or your client. And as consultants, we may have technical skills here and there, but really technical skills are things that you can just go learn on a webinar or open a book and go through the motions and pick up. The true skill of being a great consultant and really being an effective coworker, to me, is just being able to read people that you work with and being able to get through and get them to understand where you're trying to bring them, and vice versa, where you're trying to put yourself in their position, in their shoes, to understand what's happening. Because a lot of times with consulting, we're just thrown into a situation where we have to come up to speed very quickly, and we're looked at as experts. So much like a doctor, when you go in, you can't have your doctor show any form of hesitancy or not knowing what's going on, you want to be able to trust that person. And being able to kind of read and interpret how they bring in information, and the most effective way to get through to them is what's important. So we found that as a key critical skill, as far as, in fact, it's one of our competencies, is dealing with ambiguity, dealing with client influence, and one of the things we evaluate our consultants on. So that was probably the preeminent competency that we saw, that we found the most value with.
Okay, and I think that would be true, really, of just about any company, if there's leaders out there thinking about it, that it really does come down to the people. Like you said, we can go out and we can learn the tactical types of skills, but if we don't know how to influence people to take advantage of our skills, then we're not going to have the impact. So I really think it goes much broader even than consulting companies, as I think about it, the way you described it there, Bobby.
Yeah, and it's even also with us, like knowing how you take in information and how you interpret things too is great, because sometimes you go in, you're an expert, you're supposed to, you may see things a certain way, but lots of times we deal with different industries, different companies, different types of people, different cultures. And so if you've been working, for example, in utilities for the past 2 or 3 years, and the culture with utilities, but then now you go into sports apparel, completely different culture, different types of people. And you also have to be mindful of what brain you're operating in and how you take in that information, as well as how you respond. So that it's almost like sometimes I joke with, my wife that most of my day I'm playing therapist or a peacemaker, and vice versa, just try to get some things across
I would
to
say
help the client.
Yeah, that's probably a sign you're doing the job right. If you feel like you're working in that emotional space a lot of the time, then they probably have really grown to trust you. So I'd say that's a really good thing, although it might be exhausting by the time you get home.
No, it's great.
Yeah. Okay. So can you think of any changes in how you or members of your team have approached either your clients or your work internally since we did the workshop and talked about how the brain works?
Yeah, a lot of consultants after our workshop came to me and told me that they have now looked at the way that their clients interpret information when it comes to a decision and how they approach it. Because, whether their client operates more from the lizard brain versus kind of that higher echelon brain, kind of just then directs how they craft their messaging and how they follow up also with their client. Just after they present some information, I know you had spoke about, making sure to follow up within a certain cadence, because you realize that your clients only capture and remember so much after you present to them, as well as how you go about presenting, whether you're going to kind of scare them a little bit, but then tell them it's going to be okay and bring them through that message. So I know personally in my presentations, I have crafted that into there. So we kind of show them the this is what's going to happen if we don't move this direction, but then show them the light kind of thing. And I've also provided feedback as well.
Well, it sounds like you took good notes during during the workshop. Thank you for that. Allison, how about you? Have you seen any change from your perspective in the strategy side of things?
Yeah, I unfortunately was out of town for the actual training, so I missed that. But I did have the opportunity to spend a fair amount of time with you. You interviewed me a few months ago on one of the problems that I'd had with one of my clients, and I remember talking to you about how maybe I could have approached the situation differently, and how I could have encouraged the client to kind of come around to seeing the light perhaps a little bit quicker than they had in real life. But yeah, I think I don't know that I've seen anything like specific necessarily, but I've definitely heard what Bobby's talking about as folks kind of came back and shared that the training was really informative and helpful, and they've started applying some of the things that they've learned in the training at their client environments. I'm not at the client with folks, so it's hard to see But yeah, I've definitely heard folks coming back and telling stories about how they've kind of applied some of the tips and tricks that you brought up and shared.
And I think one of the things you mentioned about first impressions that people have, you know, Allison, when she meets with folks, sometimes it's like that, you know how you're going to feel about someone within the first second, basically. So make sure that you're conveying the right amount of warmth and confidence, because that's how you kind of establish trust, which may be difficult in that first second, but there's various tactics that you had talked about that you can kind of do that. And we pick up on those when we interview prospective prospects that kind of come in, candidates that come in. So that was great for us to kind of learn and just see that, because subconsciously your brain is doing this, but you know, once you kind of start seeing and paying attention to it, you can kind of pick up more on it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, Bobby. That's one of the things we talk about on the so I lead the recruiting team here at Propeller, and there's about half our company is on the recruiting team. And that's one of the things we talk about a lot, is how, so understanding that first impressions are a thing, and that most people are kind of, you know, you make assumptions on people based on what you see initially. When we're interviewing people, it's actually really important to kind of like force yourself to not think about your first impression and give the person actually a fair shot. So that's one of the things that we talk about a lot.
Okay, great. You guys have come up with a lot of really practical suggestions that I'm hoping that our human resource professionals and talent management professionals who are listening along with us are picking up on today. And of course, I'm always telling trainers, instructional designers, training managers that you are first and foremost a consultant. And if you understand that, then everything that Bobby and Allison have been working on that they're talking about today should be helpful to you. And maybe you'll become one of those great places to work by doing so. So I've got one more question for each of you, and I imagine they're different answers, but they might not be. It's okay if they're the same. What one thing are you working on right now that's got you most excited?
So I'm actually about to present at another kind of convention or conference for talent development professionals. So this one was really great to talk about neuroscience and understanding the brain. I'm speaking in a couple of days at a conference on storytelling and how storytelling can really be influential in catapulting organizations to new levels, and thinking through how to connect with people. So kind of related to everything that we've been talking about today, but like how to connect with people on a level that they really are able to connect with you on, and that's through story.
Oh, absolutely. Stories have a very powerful effect on the brain. And let me just expound for a minute because I can't help myself. The brain can't tell the difference between a intensely imagined experience and a real one. And so when you tell someone a story and you pull them in, that's why we get so emotionally connected. If we could watch your brain during that story, it's just as though it's happening to you. So that's why stories are so very powerful. Do you want to share with us where people can, the event, so we can go and watch you speak, Allison?
Well, it's in Portland, Oregon. We're going to be speaking at the Sheraton by the airport here on Thursday. But it's an Association for Talent Development conference, so ATD is the acronym.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then they're going to be recording the sessions and posting them on their website afterwards.
Oh, okay. Well, share me the link. Yeah, send me the link, and I'll make sure our listeners all get it. I'm a big fan of ATD as well, and most of our listeners are, so they'll be very happy to listen in on that.
Sure. Yeah, gladly.
Okay, Bobby, what's got you most excited?
Well, one of my fellow consultants and I that I work with on the project, every morning before we go into the office, we like to just get together for a cup of coffee at the local coffee shop right by our client, just to kind of talk about our day and what we're going to approach and things. But then we also kind of just talk about, you know, our passions and consulting in general. And we decided to do a joint blog. And kind of the topic area that we're looking at doing is focusing more on how to look more long-term when it comes to strategy and decisions in business rather than short-term, because quite a bit what we see in consulting is that people are just focused on so many short-term goals. They're using that lizard brain just to approach that quarterly profit, and at the same time, what happens is you're foregoing kind of those long-term visions and strategies that you are doing or you're planning on doing. So we're kind of collecting information on that right now. And then, as you mentioned before, with storytelling and some of the previous Propeller blogs, and to plug our Propeller blogs here on our website, I always love to open up a blog posting with a story to capture the audience and get them engaged, because when you start visualizing it, as you mentioned before, it sinks in and it becomes more effective. So that's an effective use of storytelling that I like to incorporate when writing, and it's a great way to make it entertaining as well as something that will be useful for folks.
Okay, well, those both sound like really exciting projects, and I'm sure you're both going to do famously with them. Please make sure you get me those links, and we'll put them up on the site along with this podcast. So everyone, what you're going to be able to do is you'll know how to follow Propeller, how to get in touch with them if you need some consulting, and definitely how to follow Allison and Bobby as they're establishing their thought leadership on these subjects. So my guests today have been Bobby Kosh and Allison Torpey, both of them from the Propeller Group, one of the best places to work in Portland, in Oregon, in fact, in the entire state, and great partners with Learning2Go. So thank you both, guys, and I look forward to having you back again someday to tell us about your progress.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.